Is anyone here? Is this super grainy? Or is this just my side? Am I alone? Hi, Rachel. Okay, I'm like, am I alone? I don't know how to do this. This is my first Facebook Live, so I jumped on earlier to play around on my own group, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm really doing. Yeah, I don't know what to do about the video. Um, Sorry. I don't usually look pixelated like this, but anyone have any ideas about how to fix that? No? That's okay. Maybe we'll see if this kind of fixes itself. Might just be a weird video, which is pretty on brand for me. So I'll go ahead and get started. It's 10:01. My name is Kim Dupont, and I am here to talk to all of us about leadership basics. So by the end of this, I want, thanks Adrian, everyone to be able to understand, like, from a leadership perspective, what is your own why, what leadership means to you, and the basics of interacting with others that you either directly lead or influence. So I'll pause there. Is there anything outside of that that you would want to get out of today's session? And you can put that in chat. I'm going to try and make this a little bit interactive as well, so you're not just watching me and listening to me. So find your why, what leadership means to you, basics of interacting with others. Anything else you would like out of this? Good morning, Amy. Okay, Sarah's good. Cool. If there's anything that comes up as we're talking, feel free to put it into chat. So I've been a corporate leader for over 10 years at this point, an informal leader my entire life. I am an oldest child, and I'm an Enneagram 8, so that tells you a little bit about who I am. I am currently becoming a certified business coach as well. I teach leadership and development for a large healthcare organization, and so I'm a leader in both Saint and my other day job. I joined Saint last fall, and I am currently an artist 3. So I do have a team. Building your team. I can talk a little bit about that. This is not going to be about recruiting. Like, even in a corporate world sense, like, the whole recruitment process is one thing. That's just getting people in the door. Being able to lead people is a whole other skill set. So I'm not going to get into recruiting and building your team. I'm just strictly going to talk about once you have a team, or you are part of a team where you have influence, like, you can still be a leader without having, like, direct reports or people on your downline. So that's where I'm going to focus today. I can recruit. I used to be a professional recruiter. It is not my favorite thing to do in the world, but I do love leading and helping people through that. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is you have got to figure out your own why. So what is in it for me? What do I want out of being a leader? Like, if my why has anything to do with coercion, or like, I just want to be the boss of people, that's probably not a good centering place to be at if you want to be a leader. Like, you really have to connect with, why is it that I think I have something that I want to lead in other people? And some of that could just be, like, I have some skills and abilities, and I think that we could make this world a better place if we all just used a little bit of things to make things better. So that's kind of like an influencer effect. And so I try to do that. Those of you who are actually on my state team, I see a lot of you in the chat already, actually aren't in my downline. They might be my sisters, and you can still lead people and influence people. And it's so important to be able to figure out why that matters to you. So for me, I also was a political science major, so, like, the common good and coming together and doing good things really, really matters to me. And I think that that's why I like being a leader, is because I can help other people find their why and kind of move forward in their life in a more positive way. So that's the very first thing you got to do if you're going to be a leader, is figure out your why. The second thing you need to do is figure out your people's why. So why do they want to be an artist? Why are they in this? What helps them? Like for me, I just like helping people and I love makeup. So if I can help people like figure out how to do makeup, try a better makeup, try a better approach, like fall in love with the way they look, that makes me super happy. I'm not in this to like replace my day income. I'm more in this for having fun and helping people. And if money comes on the side, that's great. But you're gonna have to talk to each individual person and see what they're in it for. Like for some people, it might be, hey, I just want a hobby. Other people, I need to like figure out my car payment situation, or I want to replace my existing income so that I can stay at home with my kids or do something different, or even like moving on into retirement. That could be a great place that they're at, but you've got to figure out their why first. Now I'm gonna pause and I'm gonna try and share my screen, which is slightly terrifying because it was terrifying to even try and get on this Facebook Live in the first place. So let's see if I can share my screen, because I did create some visuals. Bear with me. I will figure this out. Distribution, nope. If anyone knows what I should be doing to share my screen, please put it in the chat. Help a person out. No. Not seeing it. Add a column. Oh, now I've just completely messed up my whole view. I hope that you guys came here to watch someone struggle, because that's exactly what's happening. But I think this is a good teaching opportunity, is that you can be a leader and not be perfect. Like, you don't have to have all the answers. And so actually that's where I'll pivot to next, is when you're leading from like a corporate perspective, you have to make sure that your people are performing. You have to make sure that they're meeting certain expectations, following policies, just actually doing the day-to-day work. That is very different, in my opinion, from what we do here at Saint. So in Saint, we're doing more of coaching with our people. We're not necessarily saying, you need to do X and Y by this point in time, and if you're not, I'm going to hold you accountable and write you up. Like, that's just not what we're doing here. And so you've got to take a different approach when you're thinking about leading and influencing people within Saint. So what you want to do is more of a coach approach and get people to be able to solve their own problems. One of my approaches as I'm going through my own coaching certification is to make sure that I am looking at people as whole, resourceful, capable, and creative. And when you look at people that way, you are going to take yourself out of the equation. And as leaders, sometimes we can try to come in and solve for all the problems for people, where we're like, oh, I know how to do this. And what that can get you into is like a spiral of overdependence. Like, you're setting an expectation that you're going to do all the things for the people, and then they're going to start having that, you know, you've set yourself up to be excessively reliant. Like, I can just ask you all the questions and you'll fix all the things for me. What that then does to you as a leader is you start becoming overwhelmed, because in our roles here, we are also selling and artists. We're not just the leader. And so you become overwhelmed in supporting your team and the other people, and you can't even focus on your own work because this is just all too much. The next thing that would happen in that spiral is you become disconnected. So either you're disconnected from getting out there and selling, you're getting out there and sharing with people, helping people learn. You're just going to completely disconnect because you've now created this spiral of overdependence on you as the leader. If you look at your people as whole, creative, resourceful, and capable people, you now put them in the driver's seat. And that is so much more valuable from a leadership perspective and for them. Like, when they can go out and solve their own problems and learn their own ways, they get so much more out of the journey and can take that and move that forward. And maybe they then become a leader. Maybe they have the confidence that they needed to be able to go out there, solve their own problems, help influence other people. And it's just this like multiplier influencer effect that happens with people. So I'm going to pause there, see if there's any questions about anything that I've brought up thus far. I'm kind of talking quickly, I think. So put it in a chat if there's anything that you want me to touch on again. And I'm sorry that this is still grainy. I don't know what's happening. Okay. The next thing I'm going to move into is mindset. So mindset helps both with you and the people you lead. So I try to, in my most best days, to have a really good growth mindset. And there's a whole book around the growth mindset. And when you're looking from a growth mindset, things like failure. Failure is no longer a limit of my abilities. That's a fixed mindset. A growth mindset would say failure is just an opportunity to grow. So I didn't hit my numbers this month. That's just an opportunity to learn from what happened and move along. A fixed mindset might also tell you like, hey, I didn't hit my numbers, I'm not recruiting, I'm not selling, I'm either good at this or I'm not. Like, there's no in between. But a growth mindset would tell you, I can learn to do anything I want. And so being able to really focus in that like positive growth-minded space is not only going to help you, but other people are going to see that from you, and that's going to kind of rub off on them. Like, being really open to your efforts and your abilities, or your efforts and your attitude really determine your outcomes versus like, I don't know, my abilities are unchanging and I can't go anywhere. So I hope that makes sense, but it's really, that's being able to do that for yourself is going to help the people that you lead and influence as well, because you're just rubbing off on them. The next thing I'm going to go into is the coach approach. So that's where you start trying to help people pause, being able to think about their best way forward without you giving them the answers. So I mentioned that I am a learning and development professional, and with the Jacob University, we literally have everything at our fingertips. And the fact that it's self-paced and people are able to go in there at their own pace, it can be a little overwhelming if you try to do everything at once, but the answers are all there. And so if you have people coming and asking you questions about things, you could just give them the answer. And oftentimes that will feel like the easiest thing to do is, yeah, I have the answer, here you go, run off in your life. It also helps you feel like, oh yeah, I helped them. But if you're looking at them as whole, resourceful, capable, and creative, put them in the driver's seat. Say, hey, have you gone out and checked the resources on Jacob University? Have you looked online? Like, there's Facebook groups galore. Like, where have you gone and figured out your kind of own journey? They're gonna get so much more out of it than you just giving them the answer. So in order to do that, you want to kind of ask coaching-based questions for people. And those coaching-based questions always start with like a what or a how, not a why. Sometimes people get a little defensive, and why questions can kind of, other than like defensive, I'm just trying to show you, like, if somebody comes at you and says like, why, blah, 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 you might react. And either you're going to come back at that, like if you're thinking your amygdala, fight or flight. So if you're a fighter, you're going to come at something. If you're a flyer, you're going to kind of retreat back. So if someone's coming and asking you a why question, one of those things might occur in that human being, and that's just because how our brains are wired. If you come at someone and you ask them a how-based question or a what-based question, they're going to be able to pause and move out of that amygdala and into their prefrontal cortex and be able to think very logically, like, ooh, what are some of the things that I could do to move forward in a different way? So that's a really key thing that I've learned being a leader and going through my own coaching certification is to pause and ask those types of questions and look at the other person to solve their own problems instead of you coming in and doing that. Because again, if you're coming in and solving all the problems, you're going to go into that cycle of overwhelm, overdependence. You might start disconnecting yourself. And we don't want that for you as a leader. We want you to be able to be your best self, but be able to lead down and influence other people in a positive way. And you do that by putting other people in the driver's seat. So I'll pause there if there's any questions on, okay, that's great, starts better conversations. Yes, Jody, so helpful to know why versus what, how. Yeah, it's a simple little thing. And this is a life skill too. Like if you're talking to your spouse or significant other or your kids, it's a life skill to know these little things because we've been wired. We have pathways that we've built in our brains to help us move through our lives. And we do those things so quickly that we don't know how we're acting. So, okay, good. Lauren, thank you. I'm glad. Okay. So the next thing I want to move into, now we've kind of talked about okay, we want to know people's why, we want to know our why, we want to be able to help people solve their own problems and influence them in that way. I have not yet experienced this in Saint, and I'm thankful for that, but in my normal life, both in the corporate world and just life in general, family, sometimes we need to have crucial conversations. And if anyone has ever read that book, there's a whole class. I teach a class on it at work, and so I'm fairly skilled in this area. But what it is, a crucial conversation has opposing opinions, high stakes, and I always forget the other one. But it's basically high emotions. So there's a lot of emotion around this. So this is another important life skill. But the framework for the conversation works anywhere. So when something happens, we see and hear something let's say somebody on your team accuses you of not being helpful. Hey, I sent you a message and you didn't respond to me for 48 hours, so I feel like you're failing as my leader and you're not helpful. So what that person did is they went through this whole cycle in their brain, and they did it so quickly they didn't know they did it because their brains have been wired this way. Because we created stories in our head to get us through life at a very early age, and we've just carried that on. So what this person saw or heard was, I made an attempt to reach out to you to talk to you about something, and you didn't respond to me for 48 hours. That's a fact, okay? They then told themselves a story about why that happens. So their story was, you don't care about me, you're failing as a leader, I don't want to do this with you right now. That then gave them a feeling I'm not important, I'm mad at this person, whatever those things. But the story that they told themselves generated feelings within them. And then they decided to act, which was, I'm going to tell you exactly what I think about this situation, I'm not okay here. We do this stuff too, but when you're a leader or you're in a position of power or influence, it is super important to be able to pause and not react to that. Because what you now are doing is the exact same thing they did. They had their pathway into their feelings. You now have your pathway into your feelings. You're seeing here, the first thing that happened was, hey, this person came at me and told me that I'm not doing my job or I'm failing them. Maybe I didn't see the message. Maybe I did. So you got to go and look just straight facts. All the time, go as far as you can, root cause analysis into the facts. Then you can try and you'll have your story too. Well, this person has no empathy for me. I'm busy. I'm a mom. I got stuff going on too. I'm not just here for them. Which would create a whole feeling in you. And if you didn't pause, you could come back and have a less than optimal conversation with that person. So what we need to do as leaders and as people of influence and spouses, parents, is to be able to pull the other person into dialogue. let's get together, let's share what both of us experienced, and let's figure out a way forward. So the way to approach that is to set up your conversation. I wish I could show you my screen. I'll see if I can get with Rachel and Nikki after this to send out what I wanted to show you. But it's a framework to have the conversation. First, you're going to share your facts. Okay, you sent me a message 48 hours ago. I didn't see it. Or I saw it and I meant to mark it as unread and then I didn't. You then share your story. So, okay, this thing happened. I'm sorry, like you came in at me a little hot, and now that's kind of making me feel like we don't have a good, like, trusting relationship or boundaries here. So then you're going to ask them to come in, and you're trying to get into dialogue so that you can fix the things. You want to get to a positive outcome. So share your facts, tell your story. This made me feel something. How do you see it? What did you experience? And you just start having that back and forth. You want to make sure that there is a how you do this too. When you talk to people, you need to come from a place where you don't know everything, because you don't. You do not have all the information. You do not have all the facts. You don't know where this person has been in their life to make them jump to some sort of conclusion. So you want to talk tentatively. You want to assume positive intent of the other person. And you want to encourage them to challenge you. Like, let's challenge each other. Let's really figure out what's going on here. And what that's going to do is it's going to establish a better relationship of trust. And you guys are going to be able to move forward in a much better way. And it sets up an expectation of how things are going to work moving forward. And what I've experienced when you can use this really effectively with people is they now can do these things and they can get themselves out of that spiral of thinking and be able to get into their prefrontal cortex and think very logically about, well, okay, they didn't respond to me. Maybe they forgot. Like, maybe I could just reach out to them again and see if it's okay. So, if you guys want more information on this, I am happy. Like I said, I'm very skilled in this area. I teach people all the time. I've actually been able to move some people in my corporate job where they were about ready to be fired. Like, they just weren't there. Using these things with people and getting them to be whole, resourceful, capable, creative, and trust me, they now are like some of the top performing people we have. So, and that's in my corporate job. So it can change people's lives. It can work in your marriage. It can work, like, it works all over the place. I've had to use it with my sister before. So it's a really important skill to have as a leader, but just as a human being. So let me go through my notes. I've talked about a lot of things. Be yourself. When I first became a leader in the corporate world, I thought for some reason I needed to be like some super professional, like, I don't know. It was weird, but it wasn't me and it wasn't authentic. And that totally impacted my whole team and me. Like, people were ready to leave. Like, this one woman who I work very close with now, she and I've worked together for 10 years. She was like, I can't work for this woman. Like, that was a huge thing for me, is I just was trying to be someone I'm not. Like, I'm slightly awkward and goofy, but like, I still am impactful and effective at my job being who I am. So that is a core thing. Like, find your why, find other people's whys, but you have got to be yourself, because people can smell inauthentic. Like, we know that, just as trying to help people with Saint, like, you have got to be you. It's draining for yourself to try to be someone you're not, but people can tell. So don't try to be like somebody else. Like, my upline is Katie Moyer. I am not Katie Moyer. I am not like a professional makeup artist with like flawless skin, but I'm me. And I'm good enough. I'm good enough for people with me. I'm good enough for the customers who've gravitated for me. Like, you gotta be yourself. Just put it out there. So I forgot that was a very key thing in my notes that I wanted to put in here, because that was a big lesson that I learned for myself. Just be yourself. So don't try to solve everyone's problems for them. Try to create space where people can problem solve with each other, ask each other questions, challenge each other, but also create really strong boundaries for yourself. Like, I believe in being a servant leader, but I also believe that you can serve too much. And if you aren't taking care of yourself, you can't serve anyone else. Like, it's the same thing you think about motherhood or anything. Like, if you aren't taking care of yourself, you aren't any good to anyone else. So make sure that you are like creating boundaries with your team and with other people. If you don't respond for 24 to 48 hours because you got stuff going on, let that be a boundary. Tell people, like, you know what? I'm not on call 24/7. I try to really balance my personal life, my health, and so it could take me 24 to 48 hours to get back to you. So in the meantime, why don't you go out and see what you can figure out on your own? Lean on other team members. Like, we have so many resources out there, like, and that's another way, like, you don't want to solve everyone's problems because you'll get into that cycle of overdependence, overwhelm, and then you'll start disconnecting. So boundaries, super important in leading, but also just in life in general. If you haven't noticed, most of the things I'm saying are like just life tips. They're leadership tips, but they're also really valuable life tips. Okay, I know that I had an entire hour. I feel like I could drown people with leadership and development, so I really tried to hone in on like basic things that are just going to help people be successful and help you maintain your health and well-being, as well as being able to serve others. So I'm going to stop and open it up for Q&A. And then I'll have my call to action. So good. I'm glad you guys like the tips. I will, Rachel, I'm going to try and get with you and Nikki and see if I can share my slide deck. I have designers who work for me. That's not my forte. I'm not one of those people who like gets on Canva and does all the great stuff. It's just not me. So I have a slide deck, but it is simple, and that's okay. It still has the information. Okay, any questions? Yep. All right, so I'll leave with my call to action then. I'll stay on here and see if anyone has anything. Figure out your why. Why do you want to be a leader? If you do want to be a leader, maybe you don't want to be one. You've got to start there. So how can you look at the things in your life that matter to you and figure out, do I want to be a leader? If so, why? And if not, that's fine too. Okay, thank you all. Apologies that this was grainy and I couldn't share things. My first Facebook Live, but I really appreciate this and this opportunity. And if anyone ever has any questions about like what books to read around leadership development or courses or approaches to doing anything, please reach out. Like, I like helping people. That's why I do Saint. So if there's anything you ever need, like, just feel free to reach out. I'm happy to give some tips and tricks and like some ideas and approaches if you have any problems that you're trying to solve. So, okay, have a good day. Thank you, everyone.